So a little bit about us. We work for Fishnet Security, but we're not salespeople, so you really don't have to worry about that portion of it. I'm a principal consultant on the AppSec team. I also am an associate professor of software engineering at the University of Advancing Technology, so they have a booth over there in the vendor area if you feel like talking to them. And even though we didn't change the slides, that's actually J-Rock, not Justin Engler. We went through our entire team and gave each other hip-hop names, so that's J-Rock.
Okay, Nate Dogg.
And I'm Nate Dogg, yeah.
I'm Seth. I'm also a principal consultant at Fishnet.
And I'm Greg. I'm a senior security consultant at Fishnet as well.
I'm Justin. I'm a regular consultant at Fishnet Security.
So kind of what our talk is about here is we're going to provide a little bit of an overview of problems with current testing tools that people may or may not be aware of. So kind of our modern landscape is that we end up with people who may be in a QA or security testing role who may have come from a different background, that like they may not have had development experience. So when they run into problems or when they run into technologies they may or may not understand, they might not find vulnerabilities that are fairly easy to find. And some of that is a problem on the tools perspective, like not being able to handle modern web applications. So we'll go through some of the current workarounds and how that, how people are handling those. We'll go through a little bit of proposed solutions, like how those can be fixed. And then we wrote a tool to start addressing some of these issues. So we'll go into, we'll skip some of the stuff and get right to the demos and show you the tool. So what we aren't going to do, which this is kind of a lie, so we aren't going to beat up on any particular vendor. So that's kind of sort of not true, but we're gonna try to keep.
We didn't say tools. We just said vendor. Okay.
Yeah, it said vendor. Yes. We also currently can't solve every single problem that we outline, but we're working on it, and we're definitely not going to sell you a solution. So our goals for this is, one, to raise awareness for people who actually test applications. We want to put focus back on the tester and not so much on the tool, and that's what our tool allows you to do. I know that sounds kind of weird, like we're giving you a tool so that you don't have to use tools. So it sounds kind of strange, but you'll get it by the end of the talk, I promise. If not, you can punch me in the face afterwards. And also to get you to submit bug reports for Raft. I remember a couple times when some tools came out, I don't want you guys to do what I did, so I would download the tool and give it a try, and then something wouldn't work, and I'm like, this sucks, I'm not going to look at it anymore. So don't do what I've done in the past. I realize I'm not being a good advocate of that, but we will fix something, and we will take feature requests and try to work things into the tool. So a little bit of clarification. Throughout the talk, we use terms fully automated and semi-automated, and sometimes we use those interchangeably, so that causes some confusion, and we're going to continue to be confusing about that, so sorry. So this slide's going to try to explain what we mean. So if you think of a fully automated testing tool, like your enterprise application testing tools, those are like the Mac 10 on the right-hand side, right? So basically what you're doing is you're loading up a bunch of bullets and you're just spraying them in a current. Anybody who's ever shot a Mac 10 knows that you can't hit anything with it. They might as well not even have any sights on it. You just point it in the general direction and you put holes and stuff. Not always the best solution. So semi-automated testing, or how it should be, which is what you'd think of sending data to something like running through a bunch of different test cases. That's more like the semi-automatic sniper rifle. So you're honing in on a problem, and you're really trying to focus on that problem and find vulnerabilities based on a specific set of test cases. And that's mostly what we're talking about during this this talk. Is we're talking about the left-hand side. We're talking about the sniper rifle.
Okay, so I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about the current solutions that exist out there. I'm not sure how well you guys can hear me. Basically, we test for a living, right? We're looking at web applications, and we've kind of figured out that they all fall down in some way or another. I mean, you get the fully automated tools where you click the start button and it's supposed to find every vulnerability under the sun, and I end up spending 2 to 3 days configuring the thing, and it comes back and it tells me there's, SSL is inconfigured or misconfigured or some shit like that. So the automated tools fall down. I mean, there's the fully automated ones, the semi-automated ones. They have session and state problems. You've got scanners that'll run and they pull what you did. And the next time that you go to the site and have the tool run, it's out of state and it can't figure out that it's out of state. So you've got hundreds or thousands of requests that are coming back in the tool, or that the tool is making to the website, and they just aren't valid because they're all returning 302 redirects or something like that. They have problems with these complicated applications. The modern technologies we already talked about, CSRF tokens, our rich internet applications, web services. The tools just don't understand them very well. Furthermore, all this data that is collected is in disparate locations, right? You've got your proxy that you're using while you're testing. You've got the full-blown app scan or web inspect. Sorry, I probably wasn't supposed to mention that. But the fully commercial scanners, I mean, getting data out of those tools can be just one huge pain in the ass. As you go further, you've got all this data that you've collected that there's no analysis that's run on it after the fact, right? You've got a single request response. The scanner goes in, it makes its assumptions about what's happened, and then it basically discards that data. Right? There should be some sort of analysis that goes on after the fact. As testers, we need more interaction, not abstraction, right? We need to be able to understand the application in order to break the application or in order to find the vulnerabilities. And if it's not, I mean, if the tool is basically the point and click tool, you don't understand what it's doing behind the scenes. All the vulnerabilities that I find typically are because I'm in the application, I'm actually looking at the requests and the responses on a low level, not at the level that is being presented to me by the tool itself. Furthermore, we miss portions of the application. If you think about the mobile applications that exist and the space that's out there now, when your iPhone makes a request, you get a different application than you do when you're using your Firefox web browser. If the tool doesn't understand that, hey, it needs to fuzz the accept header or the user agent header to actually get into portions of the application, you're going to miss maybe 50% of the application is developed by the developers. And there's some risk. We could go on forever. If you really want to know about the problems, we really beat up within the white paper that we presented.
Can anybody tell, like anybody who tests web applications, so say you have an automated testing tool, can anybody see from the screenshot why it might have a problem? There you go. It says sign out. A lot of automated testing tools look for a regular expression to tell whether it's in state or out of state. So the application is clearly asking the user to authenticate, yet it says sign out, like they're already logged in. So a lot of tools will continue to send their tests and fail based on that.
And then you've got things like this risk-based login that we're talking about at the beginning, financial applications. Depending on where you're coming from, if it's a new browser that it hasn't seen before, they're going to ask you for more layers of authentication. And the first time you step through it with your tool, it may ask 2 or 3 different questions, and it'll be different the next time that you hit the application. So these tools are just, they're basically killing us when it comes to application testing. There's simple features we're missing: request times, authorization checks, storage locations, the new HTML5 spec, Flash objects, things like that. Especially these tools that were built in 2001, 2002, they don't understand any of that new technology.
So now that we've talked about why the existing tools can't do a good job on the whole picture, we're left with trying to figure out at the end of the day when I have to do an assessment, what am I going to do? So even though a lot of tools don't handle the whole picture, there's some that can handle pieces. So we run a bunch of separate tools that do little pieces. And a lot of them don't have any analysis of their own. Sometimes we'll write our own custom scripts to do something custom to generate a whole bunch of requests. But then we don't have any way to analyze what we just did. And not only do we not have the way to analyze just the one thing from one tool, we've got all this stuff from all these different data formats, and we don't have any way to get them all in one spot and then look for commonalities. Another problem with doing it this way is that most of these tools, even when they do have analysis, you can only do it on the stuff you just ran. If you've got data from a bunch of tools from last year and now some new type of vulnerability came out and you want to check, hey, do I have that in any of my stuff? You're going to have to scan everything again. You can't just take the results that you had and run the analysis. So instead, you could try testing manually, but when you look at the scope of the assessments, at least that we get, there's not really any chance that you would be able to get anything meaningful done by manually clicking things and manually looking at the responses. We've got, thousands of pages to look at in the course of 2 weeks. You're not going to get it done. You need to have something that helps you reduce that burden. So just manually doing it isn't going to work. If you've got a crazy tool that almost does what you need, sometimes you can modify something to do what it wasn't supposed to do. But even that can be painful, and you're spending time writing scripts when you should be spending time testing the program that you're supposed to test.
Has anyone in here ever had to use like Windmill or Selenium to do a security test? Anybody? Couple people.
Hands.
Okay, so that's kind of what we're talking about. Like, Windmill and Selenium are more or less QA tools. They're not really made to find security vulnerabilities. So you might be looking for something specific, like let's say you modified and you had some Selenium scripts and you were looking for SQL injection. Well, you're kind of focused on SQL injection, but you might miss a whole slew of vulnerabilities in other data in the same request that could be easily found if there was proper analysis done on it.
So the other problem is many tools were fine when they were first written so that you could, present at DEF CON a couple of years ago, but they've never really been kept up to date, or they don't adapt. And so just like our picture, you need to stay up to date with the times or you will become useless. I would argue.
I don't think she's ever been useful, but it was just a funny picture. So anybody here use clip2 on a regular basis for doing web application testing? Raise your hand, please. We can get some kind of count. Okay. And how about Dirbuster? A couple more hands. All right. Okay, so I'd say that was maybe 10%. Yeah.
So if people haven't figured it out yet, clip2 is just a piece of crap. If you actually look at what it is, it's just a list of web request URLs that get sent, and it has some pattern matching that comes back. There's no intelligence in it at all. I mean, about the only thing it's valuable for is testing very broken WAFs. And Dirbuster, we're going to talk a little bit more about Dirbuster. So those word lists that you guys are using in your Dirbuster tests, or if you're using Dirbuster or if you're importing them into another tool, those haven't been updated since 2007. And if people haven't noticed, the web has moved on since then. And there's a lot of common words that we see all the time that aren't in those lists. So there's a couple reasons for this. When those lists were first generated, they were generated by going out to websites and spidering the website, seeing what directories existed, and pulling words down. Well, if you think about that, you're interested in parts of the website that don't exist, not the parts that do. So if you're just depending on values that come back, you're going to be missing all the stuff that you think you should find but aren't. And there's a lot of bad words in there, so you're wasting time, because search engine optimizers do keyword stuffing, so you're going to end up with all these strange words that are completely useless. So here are some common words that we see in our assessments on web servers that aren't in the small and medium list. I mean, ASP.NET, ASP.NET Client, that's pretty important. The VTI directories, there's good information that can be pulled from that. So that's just something to be aware of. I mean, these are common things that are missing. So if you're depending on these tools and not actually looking at what they're doing, you have these big blind spots. And this is kind of, we were reviewing the Dirbuster list.